The incredible thing about Chanukah is that it takes place here in Israel where it was instituted, and indeed in the northern hemisphere, in the darkest and longest nights of the year, the shortest days and the longest nights. We're in the middle of winter, the depths of darkness, so much so that at this time we know in the month of December is always the longest nights, and also the end of the month and the beginning of the month, like Chanukah is at the end of Kislev and beginning of Tevet, is where there is no moon. The moon disappears and takes a while to appear. So indeed there's no moon at light. They are the longest and darkest nights of the year. Remarkably, this seems to be connected to the Gemara in Massechet Avodah Zara Daf Chet, which says that in the time of Adam, after Adam's sin and was expelled from the Garden of Eden, he noticed that it was the winter time. He didn't know about winter, but he noticed that the days were getting shorter and the nights longer. And it says that he prayed and fasted for 8 days, concerned about what was happening to the world, perhaps getting lost in the darkness of oblivion. And we see an additional fact about Chanukah, about the darkness and the light, that we see that the miracle of Chanukah, of the oil lasting for 8 days, that we remember that miracle. We light lights at night. You don't fulfill it in the day. It has to be lit in the beginning of the night, either after Shkia, or after sunset, or after 3 stars out. The sages instituted that at night. There's something about the light dispelling darkness in the deepest and longest times of the winter and difficult months, that we light up the sky, the darkness with this light. This, it seems, says the Maharal of Prague, is the essence of what Chanukah is about, because after all, we know, says the Maharal of Prague, there would never have been a festival, let alone for 8 days, even for 1 day, about oil which lasted for 8 days. He says we don't have any festivals which he had to consecrate a mitzvah, that they could have done the mitzvah. No, it would have taken them a few days longer, and they would have found oil and they would have lit it. And even if they wouldn't have, since when do we have festivals about the opportunity to do a mitzvah? He says the festivals of Hallel and Thanksgiving are about salvation, like Pesach and like Purim and the others, etc. And he says, therefore, of course, it was about the military victory. That's what was celebrated. And indeed, in the book of Josephus, the history book, and in the book of Chashmonaim 1 and 2, the book of the Maccabees, there's no mention at all about the miracle. It speaks, Dafka, about the 8 days of celebration when they consecrated the temple in the times of the Chashmonaim, like they did in the time of Solomon in the book of Kings, chapter 8, where it says that they consecrated the temple for 8 days. Or in the second book of Chashmonaim, it speaks about the 8 days of Sukkot, that Chanukah taking place soon after Sukkot. They remembered the days of Sukkot. So if it's really about the temple and it's really about the military victory, then how is it that the lights, which lasted for 1 day, the oil for 8 days, became the symbol of Chanukah? Because perhaps that is the essence. Long after the temple was destroyed, it took under 200 years before the temple of the Chashmonaim was destroyed, and after the Malchut Chashmonaim was no longer, the essence which has accompanied us for 2,000 years of Galut and now into the times of redemption, the essence of the 8 days of Chanukah is that indeed, in the depths and the darkest times, a small amount of light can dispel so much darkness. A small amount of oil that should never have lasted for 8 days, lasted for 8 days. A tiny, small family of Chashmonaim, of 1 man and 5 sons, should never have been able to defeat the Greek Empire, yet they did. And the message for us for generations is that no matter how dark and difficult and depressing and impossible the odds seem, with faith in Hashem, with the light of faith, with the belief in the justness of our cause, and doing the right thing and putting our best foot forward, even against impossible dark odds, so little can become so much. Darkness becomes light, and indeed, a tiny drop of goodness of oil can illuminate far beyond our wildest dreams. Shabbat Shalom, Chanukah Sameach.